want to record one more episode about breast cancer during Breast Cancer Awareness Month, although I will definitely be having more in the future. I already have some guests lined up to cover different aspects about breast cancer, different organizations, other people's stories. But because it's still October and it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, I wanted to record at least one more episode getting into a different topic that I haven't really gone into too much detail about. So in the previous episode, I talked a lot about how I'm trying to have a message that goes with the pink and the ribbon. So we're not just telling women who are already diagnosed with breast cancer to keep fighting, and really focus also on women who have not been diagnosed and encourage them to talk to their doctor about genetic testing, especially if they have a family history of breast cancer or ovarian cancer, to do self breast exams monthly, if not, more than once a month. That's something that everybody can do at home. It's free, it's easy, it's quick, and it can save your life. And also, if you are eligible for a mammogram, which the age is usually 40 and older, to schedule your mammograms. And also, if you find something that you're concerned about and you talk to your doctor, you may be able to get a mammogram before you're 40, which is what happened with me. Just to recap, I felt a lump when I was 38 years old, and I had my first mammogram when I was 38. So I just wanted to get into what my actual diagnosis was and what my treatment plan consisted of. I have people ask me a lot of questions, and I just wanted to answer some of those questions. So on March 4th of this year, after having an MRI in January and a biopsy at the end of February, I was diagnosed with invasive ductal carcinoma. The doctor originally thought it was stage 1, but they are not able to determine that until surgery because they do, it's called mapping, and they inject a dye before surgery to find out if the cancer has spread to any lymph nodes. So they originally said stage 1 invasive ductal carcinoma. I decided, after weighing all of my options, this was before I even found out that I had an ATM gene mutation. I decided to have a bilateral, meaning both breasts, mastectomy with direct to implant reconstruction, which I was very thankful for because I've said this before. And when I was being interviewed for the Northeast Times, I told Megan, the one who interviewed me for the paper, that when I heard the word mastectomy, my mind was blown because I just couldn't even believe I was sitting there talking to a breast surgeon about, having a mastectomy. I didn't even know exactly what the surgery entailed, but that word was scary. And what I was picturing in my mind was terrifying. And I kind of just shut down after I heard that word. I don't even know what he said after that. Luckily, my friend Kelly was at that appointment with me writing everything down because I just couldn't even think straight after I heard that word. So I had a bilateral mastectomy with direct to implant reconstruction. And I also had, it's considered a nipple sparing mastectomy, which is not always possible. That is based on where your cancer is located inside your breast. So the tumor in my right breast was far enough away from my nipple that my breast surgeon was able to, she told me she couldn't promise anything. So I knew that there was a possibility I would wake up from surgery and not have my nipples because that's very common. But she said she was going to try her best. So I at least knew it was a possibility. 3 lymph nodes were removed during my surgery, and 1 came back with cancer. The other 2 were clear. But it doesn't matter how many lymph nodes have cancer. If it doesn't matter if it's 1 or all 3, if the cancer has spread to the lymph node area, it's automatically considered stage 2. So my official diagnosis was stage 2 invasive ductal carcinoma. I just wanted to explain that some women will have a prophylactic mastectomy. Think of a lot of people know the Angelina Jolie story. I love her. I think she's a badass. Several women in her family died from breast cancer. She has the BRCA gene, and she didn't want to risk getting cancer. So she was not diagnosed with cancer, but she had a prophylactic mastectomy to prevent getting breast cancer because she had a high hereditary risk. And that's where genetic testing can come into play, or at least one situation where it can come into play. If you have a family history and you have genetic testing done and you find out that there are several gene mutations, but if you find out that you have a gene mutation that makes you much more susceptible to developing breast cancer than the rest of the general population, it's at least an option. And it may seem extreme to some people, but if your risk is, let's just say, 50% higher than the rest of the population, it might be something that some people want to look into. Some people ask, why did I have a mastectomy instead of a lumpectomy? Which is a great question. And breast cancer is such a complicated topic because, as I mentioned before, everybody's story is completely different. And so I'm just going to go over my story. And so I had a small cyst, a cancerous, not a cyst, I'm sorry, a cancerous tumor on the right side, the right breast, in the lower area that was never able to be felt by myself or my doctor. It was very small. And the only reason we knew it was there was from the MRI that I had in January. But the doctor told me that, my right breast also had several cysts throughout, my entire breast. It would be very hard to navigate through them to perform a lumpectomy. And at that point, before I even knew that, I already decided I was going to have a double mastectomy with reconstruction. And that it just made me realize that I made the right decision. He said it would be very hard to navigate through the cyst to get to the tumor. And then when I found out I had an ATM gene mutation, that was, as I said, I already made my decision. But then after that, I realized that I knew I was making the right decision. So I felt really confident in my decision. Um, and I knew I would have both breasts removed because I was at such a higher risk than most other people who do not have a gene mutation of developing breast cancer. So a couple of things went into that. Number one, I didn't want to risk getting breast cancer on the left side. And I also wanted my breast to look the same. So I didn't want to have one looking one way and then the other one, just one having a mastectomy with reconstruction. So it was for health reasons. And then also, I guess you would say cosmetic reasons, but definitely more for health reasons. I didn't want to have to worry about developing cancer on, in the other breast. That was my next question that a lot of people ask. Why did you have both breasts done? You will sometimes see people that, as I said, there's so many different options. You'll see women that are totally flat. Some people decide not to have reconstruction. Even when you're talking about reconstruction, there's different options. I felt very lucky to have direct to implant reconstruction. So all of my breast tissue was removed on both sides. And then my breast surgeon did that part of the surgery. And then when she was done, the plastic surgeon came in and put in the implants. So it was just all in one shot. I think my surgery was around 5 or 6 hours. Um, and so let's see. Okay. So sometimes people go flat. Sometimes you can get direct to implant reconstruction. Some people can have their own tissue used to reconstruct their breast. That's another option. As I said, there's nipple sparing. Many women can't have their nipples spared, and there are different ways to create a nipple. Um, after you heal from the initial surgery, there are 3D nipple tattoos, which are actually really amazing. So that was my backup plan. If my nipples weren't able to be saved during the surgery, I was going to look into that. I think that's awesome that they have that available for women going through this. Sometimes people will say, what exactly does the surgery consist of? Which is a great question because when I first heard the word, I wasn't really sure either. But basically, the all of the breast tissue, and when I say all, I mean almost all, because from what I've been told, at least 1 to 2% of the breast tissue is left behind after the surgery. But it's almost all of the breast tissue is removed. And the crazy thing is, this is another fact I learned while going through all of this. I thought that after a mastectomy, that you could never develop breast cancer again, which is actually, unfortunately, not true. It can come back in the lining of your breasts or in the 1 to 2% of breast tissue that's left behind after the surgery. So that's just something that I want people to know because I did not know that. Um, so yeah, all the breast tissue is removed. Um, and you don't feel your breasts again after the surgery, so that was something I had to get used to. It doesn't bother me as much as I thought it would. Um, it's definitely interesting, I guess. I don't really know how to explain it. Because the breast tissue is removed and there's just no feeling in your breast. It doesn't hurt. There's just no feeling. Um, The lymph node issue, as I mentioned, if it spreads to your lymph nodes, that helps determine the staging. So originally they thought I was stage 1, but since it spread to one of my lymph nodes, it was considered stage 2. That's important because if it had not spread to my lymph nodes, then I would not have had to talk to the doctors, my oncologist, about chemo and radiation. Um, when if it's already spread, even if it's just to one lymph node, then you're talking about more treatments, because then, as I said, the cancer already spread outside of the breast area into a lymph node. So it's a whole different ball game from stage 1 to stage 2. So that was scary because I really just thought, um, I caught it early enough where I did expect it to be stage 1, and I did not expect to be talking about chemo and radiation with my doctors, but that's what happened. Some people will ask how I chose or why I chose reconstruction. Basically, I'm 40 years old and I just wanted my body to look and feel as normal as possible. Where I'm at in life, maybe if I was older, I wouldn't have chose that. But just for myself and even for my kids, I didn't want to look different. So I'm still very happy with my decision, and everybody has their own personal reasons for their decisions. As I was saying before, some people will only have the affected breast removed. So sometimes you'll even see people with just one breast and then one side is flat. Some people have both sides reconstructed. Some people have both sides flat. So there's just so many different options. Something I read in a book that I wanted everybody to know because I think it's amazing. It's from a book called A Patient's Guide to Recovery After a Mastectomy, and it's called Now What? by Amy Curran Baker. It says the Women's Health and Cancer Rights Act of 1998 basically says that health insurers must cover mastectomy, and they must also cover reconstructive services. A patient who has undergone a mastectomy is entitled to reconstruction of both the affected and unaffected breast in an effort to create a balanced and natural appearance. Prosthetic breast forms, lymphedema treatment, and treatment for other post-op complications must also be covered. And that was a huge relief for me because I remember asking the doctor if the insurance was only going to cover the right breast because that was the breast that had the tumor in it. And he said no, that they would do the mastectomy on both sides and the reconstruction on both sides. And I thought that was great. So that pretty much covers the mastectomy surgery that I had done with, as I said, the reconstruction, nipple sparing. The recovery, I don't think my recovery was typical, just based on talking to other women and my doctor. But they will actually send you home, most women home, or at least offer to send you home the same day, which I thought was crazy. And I decided to, I asked my doctor if I could stay overnight in the hospital, and she said yes. I just wanted to make sure that I, was okay waking up from anesthesia, which it turned out I was not. I wanted to make sure, that my pain was managed. So I woke up in the hospital. I woke up after my surgery and I looked over at the nurse next to me, and all I cared about was finding out if I still had my nipples or not. And I just said to the nurse, "Do I still have my nipples?" She said yes. And I just said, "Okay, I'm going to go back to sleep now." So that was really exciting for me that I got to keep my own nipples. I thought that was pretty cool. So they brought me to a room, and I eventually did get very sick and nauseous from the anesthesia because I've never been under anesthesia for that long. As I mentioned earlier, I think it was about 5 or 6 hours. So I was really relieved to be in the hospital and not home dealing with that situation. After that, after one day in the hospital, I stayed at a hotel room. And actually, that was my doctor's idea. Dr. Flannery, she's amazing. She's my age. She has 4 kids, and I think she just really understands me and my lifestyle. And she said, if you can, I think you should go to a hotel for a few days to recover. And she acknowledged the fact that this is not just a surgery that affects you physically in so many different ways, but also mentally, emotionally. She said, you're never going to feel your breasts again. That's something you're going to have to adjust to. And, I'm only 40 years old. And I think at any age that would affect a woman, and it should. But I just feel so young. So, that's just a part of my femininity. Did I say that right? Femininity? I don't know. But you know what I mean. That's a part of my body that makes me feel feminine. And to have your breasts removed, even though I had implants put in, it's just not the same. And as I said, she acknowledged the fact that I will never feel my breasts again, and that there's just so many different levels to this type of surgery that she felt, me going home to a house with all 4 of my kids and the cats and the chaos and everything. She said maybe for a day or two you can just go to a hotel and kind of relax, which I did. My friend Arlene stayed with me. We had a great time. Um, we had a great time. Anyway, I did not take any pain medication. I felt great. I got up the next day at the hotel. I showered. I had a drain on each side of my body. I had this little thing that went around my waist, and it would just hold the drains so that they weren't hanging or in the way. And I had a separate one for the shower. That was really helpful. 3 days later, I went to the dance studio for the owner, Sandra's birthday party. I don't know. I felt totally fine. I was not taking any pain medication. So I just wore a big sweatshirt to cover the drains. And I went and I watched my kids perform and I danced, and it was awesome. I know that that's not typical. My breast surgeon told me that most people that wake up from that surgery feel like they've been hit by a truck and they do need several weeks to recover. Everybody's different. I'm just sharing my story. And so the recovery from the mastectomy was not bad. Then, as I mentioned several times, because the cancer spread to my lymph node, then my doctor started talking to me about the next phase of treatment. So, having the double mastectomy was the first phase of my treatment. Then they started talking to me about chemo, which is a trigger for me because I watched my husband go through several really brutal chemo treatments. It was really, really, really bad. And again, it was one of those moments where I couldn't even believe that I was talking to a doctor about chemotherapy for myself. It was absolutely surreal. I was very against it from the very beginning, but I also told myself, if this is what I have to do to live and be here for my kids, then I will do it. But I really, really, really did not want to do it. So what that came down to was I was able to have a test done, and the test gives you an oncotype score. And it's a newer test from what I've been told. It hasn't been around for too long, and it's for women with early onset estrogen positive breast cancer. So not everybody diagnosed with breast cancer can have this test done, and I was really thankful that I was able to have this test done. So during the surgery, they send oops, sorry about that. They send either I don't know if they send the whole tumor or just a piece of the tumor to a lab. It takes about 3 to 4 weeks to get the results back, but that number really helps you determine where your treatment plan is going to go next and what it's going to look like. For me, the bottom line was, depending on what that number was going to help me determine whether I was going to go through with the chemo that they were recommending or not. So the Oncotype score goes from 0 to 100, and then there are different recommendations depending on what your score is. My oncologist told me that he wanted me to be in the single digits, meaning he wanted my score to be under 10 for him to feel comfortable for me not to do chemotherapy. My score came back 16. So it was kind of in this gray area. But when I talked to him about percentages, I said, tell me what the chance is that my cancer will come back with chemotherapy or without chemotherapy with this score. I believe he said there was a 3% chance difference. And then when I started researching that score, my Oncotype score, it basically said I had a 1.6% chance of chemotherapy being helpful for me. And that just 100% was not worth it for me. There was just no way I was going to go through that. I know the side effects of chemotherapy. And again, I'm not saying that everybody should skip chemotherapy. Everybody's cancer journey is completely different. But I just knew for me, with that score, that was not going to be a part of my journey or my treatment plan. And that was a huge relief for me. So, in general, most of the research says that if your score is 25 or below, you could consider just skipping chemo. Again, I'm not telling anybody to skip chemo. I'm just telling you what I did and what my research has, what the research out there says. So I was comfortable with my decision to skip chemo. I decided to go straight to radiation. I had targeted radiation done. I When they told me about the radiation, they said it's 25 treatments, which just sounded crazy to me. And they said you come in Monday through Friday for 5 weeks. I couldn't even fathom doing that because I have 4 kids at home. It was summer, and I just thought, this is crazy. I looked at the schedule and I saw all 25 treatment, the days and times, and I just thought, this is going to be crazy. So I wanted to find a way to make it fun and help me get through it and just stay positive, because I figured that would just make the time go faster and it would just make it more fun. So I decided before I even started radiation that I was going to wear a different shirt for every treatment. And at first I thought I was kind of crazy because that's a lot of shirts. That's 25 shirts. But I just figured, I'll do it. I'll figure it out as I go. Um, and I did. And it was, I can, it sounds bizarre, but I really did have so much fun at radiation. The radiation therapists were amazing. And my radiologist, Dr. Dragon, was amazing. And we had a blast, and they played along with me. They took the pictures and helped me, with my props and different things. So I was going to just pull up the pictures. You can go on my Facebook or Instagram to look at the pictures, but I'm trying to think of a couple of my favorite ones. They started out kind of normal with just t-shirts, and then towards the 10th treatment, I brought in boxing gloves and I pretended I was punching the radiation therapist. That was fun. And then for my 11th treatment, my shirt said, "Life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain." And I had an umbrella and my point shoes on and a tutu. That was probably one of my favorites. Um, a lot of people liked it was my 14th treatment, and I had a shirt on that says genetics mutations happen. And I had the radiation therapist get on the floor behind me and stick one of her hands out. So it looks like I have 3 arms. That was pretty funny. Um, Another really cute one was radiate positivity. And I had a sun above my head and my shirt had a rainbow on it. Anyway, I documented every single radiation treatment I had with some kind of t-shirt or prop or costume, and it really just helped keep my spirits up. And I would actually plan my outfit the night before, and it made me excited to go to radiation because we just had a blast. So I encourage anybody that has to go through radiation to do something like that. It doesn't have to be the same thing, but just something where you're not dreading it and you just keep yourself in a, good headspace and just stay positive. I have no idea why I'm losing my voice. Okay, so I went over the mastectomy. Basically went over radiation. And as far as what happened at radiation, I would go into the room. I would lay on a table. I would put my right arm above my head, and the machine would, it would just do its thing. It would, do the radiation on my body. And then they would come in and put an attachment on. And then I would get like another short session of radiation. It was very quick. I would usually be there in the room for maybe 15, 20 minutes, and then we would take a picture and I would leave. It flew by. I can't believe I went there for 5 weeks because it went so fast. And again, I think it's just because I had so much fun and just stayed positive the whole time. So I went through that, told you why I skipped chemo. Then my third part of my treatment was having my tubes and ovaries removed. I'm sorry, I'm tired. Tubes and ovaries removed. And that was for a couple different reasons. As far as how it pertained to my cancer, I had them removed because the cancer I had was estrogen receptive, meaning that estrogen was fueling, feeding, making, causing the cancer. Um, so since I had my ovaries removed, I was able to um, plan on taking a different type of medication, an aromatase inhibitor, which I'm actually starting tonight. I'm taking my first one tonight. If I had not had my ovaries removed, I would be taking tamoxifen, and just from, talking to people, doing research, I didn't think that was something that would work for me with all of the side effects. So, because I had my ovaries removed, which immediately put me into surgical menopause, I was able to, take this other type of medication, which has, from what I've heard, a lot less side effects. So we'll see how it goes. Besides the cancer part, I used to have ovarian cysts that would burst a few times a year. It would happen, but it was extremely painful when it happened. And I just thought, this is great, because if I have my ovaries taken out, then I can't have the ovarian cyst burst anymore. So that was great. And then the third reason was, if I don't have ovaries, I can't have ovarian cancer. So there were really three reasons I decided to have that surgery. I was in and out. I went home the same day. It was not painful at all. I did not take pain medication. It's the easiest surgery I've ever had, actually. I have started experiencing hot flashes and other menopause symptoms, but they're not bad at all. And I will keep everybody posted with the medication that I'm going to start taking. It basically, this is another fun fact that I learned going through all this. I thought, if I have my ovaries removed, I won't need to take the medication. But I found out that you still have to take the medication, because even when a woman has her ovaries removed, our bodies still find a way to make estrogen, which is crazy. So even though I don't have ovaries and I'm in menopause, the medication is an estrogen blocking medication. And I am supposed to take one pill a day for 10 years. And it's basically, the point of it is to hopefully keep the cancer away. So I'm happy and grateful that I'm able to take this medication, because women whose cancer is not estrogen receptive, they obviously cannot take the medication because it wouldn't do anything. Another thing I wanted to talk about, of course, I have a quote. And most of us have heard this quote, but it really sums up what I'm about to say. The quote is, "If you don't make time for your wellness, you will be forced to make time for your illness." And the reason I'm bringing that up, well, first, let me say, I don't want anybody to think that if you do develop breast cancer, that it's your fault, because it is not. Um, cancer is a messy thing, and sometimes there are things in our control that we could do to lower our chances of, getting cancer or breast cancer, limiting our alcohol intake, not smoking, staying physically active. But, that being said, you could do all those things and still have breast cancer. You can have a gene mutation. There's just so many different reasons, and there's still so many unknowns about cancer. So I don't want anybody to think that I'm saying, well, if you have breast cancer, you didn't make time for your wellness. The reason I'm saying this is for a very specific reason. And it's just because I hear so many people say they don't have time to go to the doctor, they don't have time for blood work, they don't have time for mammograms, they don't ever get around to talking about genetic testing. And there's really no excuse to not do self breast exams at home. And that's why I really talk about them constantly, because it's just all you need to do is get your hand and look up the chart online, exactly how to do it. And that could really be a lifesaver, literally. If you know your baseline, what your breasts feel like, even if they're dense or have lumps or bumps, if you know what your baseline feels like, if something comes up, then you will know that you have to go talk to your doctor. So it's so simple. It's free. It's easy. It's so quick. And I really, really, really just want to encourage women out there to do those self breast exams at least once a month, if not more often, before and after your period, so you can feel the breast changes. Definitely under your armpit and the lymph node area. You really want to check under there as well. So that the reason I read that quote is because I hear people say that all the time. We're adults, we work, we have kids, and I know it's not fun to make these doctor appointments. And I know they can mentally affect you and cause anxiety. I know several people that won't have genetic testing done because they don't want to know what the results are. So I'm just reiterating the importance of the self breast exams, the screenings, because we're focusing on prevention and detection, which is what I've really been pushing all this month for breast cancer awareness, is not just focusing on the women that are already diagnosed and helping them get through treatment, which is great, and we still need that. But I think what we really need to also add into the equation is focusing on women who don't have breast cancer and keeping it that way. So focusing on the prevention and the early detection, because that will really save a lot of lives. So we've all heard of the butterfly effect. And yes, I have seen the movie and I like that movie, but that's not what I'm talking about. Um, you know, the general idea that a small change can lead to a huge change somewhere else. So essentially, the butterfly effect says that a butterfly flapping its wings can cause a hurricane on the other side of the world. Um, in a more practical sense, um, a small change, I'm reading something off of my phone, a small change at one place in a complex system can have large effects elsewhere. It's also known as chaos theory or the butterfly effect. Something I've been reading a lot about. I've always been interested in that. And I think it can relate to exactly what I'm talking about with Breast Cancer Awareness Month and trying to, as I said before, bridge the gap between awareness and action. It, as I said before being diagnosed with breast cancer, I guess, to be honest, I didn't put that much thought into it. I, saw people doing the walks, wearing pink. I saw pink ribbons everywhere, and I knew it was Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I personally, even though my grandmother had breast cancer, probably 40 something years ago, um, I don't even know if I was alive when she had breast cancer. If I was very young. It's kind of up in the air exactly how old she was when she had breast cancer. But, um, I was too young to know if I was around that she had breast cancer. So, in my mind, I was not personally affected by breast cancer. And I really didn't know anything about it. So, I was one of many people, like a lot of us, where I saw the pink and I was like, okay, it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I'll wear a pink ribbon, I'll wear a pink shirt. But after being diagnosed or having somebody in your family die or, go through treatment for breast cancer, it really changes everything. And it's really important that we have to do this together. I can't do this on my own. And I am trying to get it to build momentum. Like I said, I did an interview with the Northeast Times and it was on the cover, which I was really proud of because I actually wanted the picture to be on the cover because it's pink and I wanted to get people's attention for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And I'm doing these podcasts, and I was a guest on another podcast talking about breast cancer. I did a video at Amp to Dance that Dana put together, which I thought was amazing. She's been super helpful, getting the message out there that the pink is not enough, and we have to kind of shift from awareness to action, and also shift the attention not just from people that have already been diagnosed and they're going through treatment, but also for women who have not been diagnosed, and help them prevent getting breast cancer or detect it early. I've had a lot of people reach out to me, which is why it just makes all of this worth it. Some people I haven't talked to since grade school, other girls I haven't talked to since high school, and they're reaching out to me on Instagram and Facebook and texting me saying, because you're constantly posting things on social media, I scheduled my first mammogram, or I'm getting genetic testing done. It's something I've always wanted to do, and I just put it off. And that means the world to me. And I just think if you know, like I said, if you read the newspaper with the article, with the interview that I did, or if you listen to my podcast, or if you see these things I'm posting on my stories on Facebook and Instagram, share them with other people, because it's like a butterfly effect or a domino effect or a ripple in a pond. If I'm telling you and then you tell your sister or your friend or your mom or whoever, and they do a self breast exam and they find a lump and they catch their cancer at stage 0 or stage 1, and I could save a life or you could save a life, then that's what this is all about. I just wanted to read a few things, statistics that you may not know, which I thought were really interesting. Um, 1 in 8 women will develop breast cancer in their lifetime, which is crazy because that's a lot of women. 85% of women diagnosed with breast cancer have no family history. So, as much as I talk about genetic testing, in the big scheme of things, gene mutations, supposedly are rare. Although I have one, and I know I have friends that have them, and I guess in the big scheme of things, they are rare, but that's a huge number, that 85% of women diagnosed with breast cancer have no family history, which just goes back to, again, the importance of the self breast exams, taking care of yourself, keeping up with your doctor appointments. This is an awesome statistic. 99.9% of women with early that detect their cancer early, the 5-year survival rate is 99.9%. So it's almost 100% with early detection. So when you hear me say early detection saves lives, that's something really important to remember. Um, so I thought they were very interesting statistics. Again, there's too many women getting breast cancer, but as I just said, if it's, it's not always able to be prevented, but if it's detected early enough, it's definitely curable. Um, so that's why I'm doing this. I feel like I don't look at being diagnosed with breast cancer as a curse. I feel like it happened to me for a reason, and I feel very healthy and happy, and I am thankful that I was able to recover from my surgeries and radiation so well, and, hopefully the same goes for this medication I'm about to start taking. Um, but I cannot stay quiet about these topics. I refuse to stay quiet about these topics because I could have lost my life, and that's just the reality of it. And for those of you that have heard previous episodes or just know me personally, you know that my husband, Mark, passed away 2 years ago on April 25th, 2019, from esophageal cancer. So it's not just a concept in my mind that, oh, well, there's people out there dying from cancer. I saw it happen to my husband, and it was hell. And that's another thing that I spread awareness about. because his cancer was caused from years of acid reflux. And I will definitely do an episode focused just on that at some point. But my point is, my husband um, suffered and battled esophageal cancer for 9 months and then passed away, right in front of my eyes in hospice from cancer. So the fact that I was diagnosed with cancer 2 years later, it's not an option for me to let this go or, not speak out about it. So it won't just be for the month of October because it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I will always, talk about esophageal cancer and breast cancer and risk factors and different things you can do to help prevent it or detect it early. Because, like I said, if I could help one person, then this was all worth it. Please feel free. I'm so tired. Please feel free to reach out either through Instagram or Facebook, or you can email me, text me, call me, whatever you want to do. I would love to hear other people's stories, whether it's your own personal story or if you've lost a loved one to breast cancer and would like to share their story. I would love to share their story as well. So feel free to reach out to me. And thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, comments, or just want to reach out, you can email me at valariedancingintherain@gmail.com. And my name is spelled Valarie, dancingintherain@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for your support.